What's up, everybody? It's Wes, Hank, and Andy. We are our own little crew of specters here.
Road again.
As we gather once again to wax poetic on the road to Ahsoka. This is part 7. Holy cow, part 7 of the road to Ahsoka as we revisit the
longest preamble,
isn't it? As we revisit the essential Ahsoka Tano episodes on the Ahsoka Tano playlist over on Disney Plus. This one has me super excited because we had talked about this many times before. Wouldn't it be nice to do some Star Wars Rebels?
Oh,
True.
it's the first line of my notes. Finally, Rebels.
As I rewatched the episodes, and it's been a long time since I've watched these, I've perused them for research purposes, looking for snippets of things that, in this episode you will find. But to sit down and watch 4 episodes concurrently, like back to back to back, I'm like, God, it just reminds me of how much I love this show.
Oh yeah, it's
so good.
This was a first watch for me because I still hadn't finished season 1, but
so now
second and third watch, I guess.
Okay, so now you've gotten the season finale of season 1 because we are doing that
2
tonight.
episodes into season 2.
Nice,
excellent.
First
it just gets better.
Oh, it does. It totally gets better.
It leaps and bounds. It's like Avatar: The Last Airbender.
The Last Airbender, yeah.
It just every season is just takes it up another notch.
Something else Dave Filoni had his hands on.
Peak Star Wars, baby.
Adam over at Go Figure says, good evening, gentlemen. We send a hearty good evening back to you. Hope all is well in your neck of the woods. Super happy to be here tonight to be able to do this. I've maintained that the Rebellion era of Star Wars remains my favorite era of Star Wars. I would include some of that in between stuff, some of that what we used to call the dark times, which we are still
Rise
technically
of the Empire now.
Yeah, we are still technically in the dark times. We are well within. It is Star Wars Rebels, but it is squarely in the Rise of the Empire.
Even the Rebels note that.
Exactly.
Episodes.
The formal rebellion as the alliance to restore the Republic doesn't technically exist yet.
It's only taking shape.
Yeah,
it's still little cells here and there.
Yeah, and this is such a small corner of that too before they join Masasi.
Right. I think tonight's going to be a lot of fun. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. I'm a little bit sad that we're not going into these, like we are not devoting an entire episode to one of our episodes to a single episode of Rebels, because
my first slide has 10 images and then I went, whoa, okay, slow down.
It is part 7, but before we get going with that, as always, we better open up the vault and get us another one of those bad Star Wars jokes. As I was pulling this one together, I actually stopped and asked myself, have we used this one yet? What does it mean when you're starting to question the jokes that you're using?
Been doing it for a while, I guess.
It means watching the first 5 minutes of every episode we've done last year.
It's not like I have a master list that I'm checking them off, as I don't.
That would have been an idea.
This one is fun and this one is good. And
some of them I check the notes. You could check the notes.
I could do that.
Yeah.
I could do that by heading over to our Patreon, which you can do. Sign up for our Patreon at any level, and you will have access to all of our show notes for all of our review series as we post them there weekly. Try to get them out before we go live.
Come see my inability to spell at a rapid pace.
Or you can read all of my spelling mistakes and my grammatical errors when I make up and invent words on the fly.
Nothing wrong with that. That's how we get more t-shirts.
That's right. That's my finger magic we're talking.
Right. Which is available on the Fandom merch shop right now.
That's right.
Wicked.
Well, listen, let's get to the joke. Guys, I want to ask you, what is a stormtrooper's favorite store?
It's not Target.
No, they can't get there.
You are so close. And the punchline is whatever's beside the target.
Nice. That feels familiar to me.
I'm like, did we use this one already? I
don't
couldn't
know.
remember, but it made me laugh. It genuinely made me laugh. So I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, if I'm
And-
finding it funny, I'm using it.
Even if we
Can't
did
hit a
use it,
target, that's ancient though.
he still hasn't hit the target. It's perfect.
I'd have clone troopers for that.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to take the lead tonight as we launch into this. We are going to start with Star Wars Rebels. It's season 1, episode 15. It is the season finale. Let me just change things up here.
I had a thought too before, not to lengthen anything, and it would be tough to do on the fly, but
sure.
I forgot to mention in the chat, was there any consideration to, like, there may be people who are watching this show that have never seen Rebels
first time.
So I approached my notes like everybody knew everybody, like it was Luke Skywalker.
I did as well. Yeah, there's
Right?
a bit of presumptive writing in this.
So I think we should maybe stick to that. But if anybody in the chat needs clarification, feel free to ask questions.
Yes,
because I know too much about Rebels.
I'm still learning,
and I'm refreshing on stuff. By the way, I'm late to the game here, but I picked up the new Xbox Series X, and I have been grinding my way through Jedi Survivor.
That's the word.
Holy cow! The number of familiar phrases and terms that have popped up in that game that we've seen in other recent Star Wars media. Yeah. Super excited about that. Anyway, that was my little aside. Sorry. Evening, TJC's in the house. Welcome tonight, sir. Thank you for hanging out with us. The trooper, Adam says, the trooper who actually finally hits Leia in Jedi gets no credit.
Is that a biker scout though? He might have been highly trained.
Was it a biker scout?
I don't know. That was at the bunker, right?
At the shield generator, yeah.
Bounce off the wall though.
Yeah.
it might
Ricochet.
They got R2 in that one as well.
Yeah, because he was trying to unlock the door.
He must be from the school of Reva, because he's been blasted twice. Blasted by a starship scale cannon and survived that one. So hand blaster's nothing for that guy.
Nothing.
All right, we are talking tonight. We're going to get started here. It's as I said before, it's a Star Wars Rebels season 1 episode 15. This one is called Fire Across the Galaxy. This one is actually written by Simon Kinberg, who is also a co-creator and executive producer on the show. He wrote 74 of the 75 episodes for the entire series. So
consistency.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to say, did I get the director on this one? Oh no, I did not. It's my bad. I'll have to look that one up for you. And if you think, sorry, what's that, Hank?
It's a good chance it was Dave, but
surprisingly, he's the supervising director on the show, and there's a lot of stuff that he didn't direct in Rebels. Especially after season 1 when he moved into more production. Yeah,
absolutely.
When I say the name Simon Kinberg, you may that may jog a memory or two, and it should, because you've probably seen at least one, if not 7 or 8 of the movies that he's been involved with over the years. He's either written or produced a bunch of things, including Mr. and Mrs. Smith, 5 1 2 3 4 5 of the X-Men movies. Yeah, 5. Oh, tonight's so Dave Filoni is the director of this episode. Thanks, Andy, for letting me know that one. So 5 of the X-Men movies, including First Class, The Last Stand, Days of Future Past, Apocalypse, and Dark Phoenix, which he also directed. He's also the producer on Deadpool 1 and 2, as well as 3, which is not out. Logan, The New Mutants, The Martian, Elysium, Chappie, and the 2009 Sherlock Holmes, to name a few.
Wow.
Oh, I did get it. I did have it here later on in my notes. Directed by Dave Filoni. It originally aired March 2nd, 2015. March 2nd, 2015. The official description reads, the Ghost crew makes a final desperate attempt to rescue Kanan from the Empire. Who will fall?
Foreshadowing.
This really doesn't have any bearing on the episode tonight, but I found this kind of interesting that it is 2 years, almost to the day, 2 years and 1 day to the day that this episode aired, after Clone Wars season 5, the first cancellation happened at the end of season 5, which is interesting because you think about that final arc in season 5, that's the end of Ahsoka's trial. She's left. Not only has she left the Jedi Order, she's left the show. The show is over. Here we are now, 2 years later, and she's now made her, at least at the time, she's made her triumphant return to the galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
I love the metaphor in that, so I thought that was
much wiser,
very much so, and completely new animation model as well. Not bad, considering how much time has passed. I actually quite like. This is my favorite animation model for the character, by the way.
It's my favorite. Like I know it's probably controversial amongst animation fans even, but I love this more than the Clone Wars stuff. And the Clone Wars stuff is beautiful.
It is. It's amazing.
I just love how Ralph McQuarrie this leans.
Yeah,
my favorite thing about it.
Yeah, there was a lot of, and that's part of why I'm a little bit sad that we're not doing the deep dive, because there's so much like, oh, you need to know that this is the proto C3PO. We already know that Chopper is the proto R2D2, but
yeah,
there's that kind of stuff is peppered throughout the entire series, and it's just so juicy good.
You could not walk without stepping on Easter eggs.
Yeah, absolutely. TJC says, I hope all you gentlemen have had a great weekend. We finally had a break in the heat here in Ontario over the weekend. It was kind of nice to be able to breathe again without having to
here, I think.
Oh, is it warm on the coast?
Oh, buddy. Yes, sir.
You'll get it in a couple days.
Fair enough.
We're getting an African sandstorm too. It's coming this way.
I had mentioned earlier about in one of our little primers about Ahsoka adopting the title of Fulcrum. And again, just presuming that everybody knows what that means when I say that. And then, as you say, well, maybe that's one area where people don't exactly know. I actually wanted to take some time, because she does come back as Fulcrum in the episode that we're going to talk about here. I thought we'd take some time and just kind of walk through sort of the Cole's Notes historical version of what Fulcrum is, was, will be, might be, could be. And it kind of starts back in the Clone Wars. And back in the Clone Wars, Fulcrum was actually a subspace communications frequency used by General Jedi Knight Anakin Skywalker during the Clone Wars as a means of covert communications. And at that time, the only people who were privy to that frequency included people like Obi-Wan Kenobi, Admiral Yularen, Ahsoka Tano, and the freedom fighter from Onderon, Saw Gerrera. Well, as we had a little conversation, a little side chat earlier this week, talking about sort of who knew what when, there's a huge and important detail here that at the end of the Clone Wars, we have to remember that Anakin Skywalker, Darth Vader, believes that Ahsoka Tano is dead, and Ahsoka believes that Anakin is dead.
Yeah.
Because lo and behold, a few years later, now this is 22 to 19 BBY that we're talking about with Anakin using this as a frequency. But then fast forward just a year later in 18 BBY, we've got Ahsoka Tano out there doing her thing in the galaxy. She runs into Bail Organa, who catches wind of what she's been doing on her own and recruits her, and she ends up taking over Bail's intelligence network. She adopts the name Fulcrum as a code name.
Well, she used it prior to this, though.
She did.
In our last arc.
No, you're absolutely right.
She used it to contact Anakin and Obi-Wan in order to get the reinforcements to go after Maul.
That's right. And
but
so
it wasn't like a full-on adoption of it. She was just using that frequency.
That's right. She knew it as a subspace frequency, and she knew that if she used it, that would get his attention. And Anakin even says, "Oh, Saw Gerrera."
Yeah.
Right.
They go in and find out, no, it's not Saw Gerrera. It's Ahsoka.
It also tells me she didn't know Yularen sort of jumped ship.
Right.
Because he's or she might not have ever used it after.
You would think. And that's what I said.
He wasn't involved in knowing it was her anyway, but that would have been a crafty little right.
If the two of them, when I say two of them, if Anakin and or Ahsoka had believed that the other was alive, Do you think she would have ever used that name?
No.
That's like asking to be found.
No, that's definitely like I'm honoring him.
Oh, yeah. Adam says, wasn't Fulcrum also the evil organization in Chuck? It was. Love my Chuck. I love Chuck. I want the Chuck revival. Zach Levi wants the Chuck revival. Fingers crossed. Maybe one day.
Sign that petition.
No, but Andy, you're absolutely right. She used the frequency to get his attention. A year later, now the show is over. Season 5 the show's been canceled, but
everybody believes everybody's dead.
Yeah, so. Canonically speaking, she goes through the sequence of events that I outlined previously, meets up with Bail Organa, starts using the name Fulcrum as a code name to maintain secrecy within that intelligence organization. That intelligence organization goes on to become part of the larger rebellion, but spoiler alert, Ahsoka is presumed dead in the year 5 BBY. So after her death, we have a couple of other instances, other major Star Wars characters that have actually used the name Fulcrum, including, let me just put this up here, Alexander Callis, Agent Callis, who's been a major antagonist for the Rebels crew in the first couple of seasons. He's an Imperial ISB agent. We've talked about him before in our Imperial Ranks video.
For my episode, he's a bit of a dink.
But he actually, he totally is. But that, you have to wonder how far in advance did he make the flip and how long was that a front and he was funneling information to the nascent rebels. So we have Callis, who actually says he's Fulcrum. He admits it to Kanan and Ezra in an elevator, and they're like, what? No, you're not.
You got to wonder how he got that information. Like,
yeah.
Like he
would have had to have gotten it from
deep inside.
Yeah,
deep
way far inside.
I mean, if he's a Fulcrum agent, based on what we discussed yesterday and what you're about to talk about, if he's a Fulcrum agent, then he may have been an agent the entire time.
I kind of wonder that as well. It lends credence to some of the ideas that we had that there could be multiple Fulcrums at the same time. In fact, that's in fact true. And I'll get to it. There's a line actually that I'm gonna pull here. Talking about other people who have gone by Fulcrum, we have in the canon, I guess it's a coffee table book. The Rogue One visual guide actually lists Cassian Andor, one of his aliases, as Fulcrum. It also says that at that time he was a recruiter. He was an intelligence recruiter.
Spoiler for season 2.
Yeah. I said privately in our private chat, do you foresee a season 2 of Andor a passage of the torch? I can't say there will or there won't be, but don't you want all of your favorite Star Wars characters to meet?
Well, they kind of meet at some point, right?
Yeah, that's right.
It would be enough for me to just use the handle once.
Yeah.
Let's see if the striking writers have worked that in before.
Oh boy. Yeah, really. Because you can't have any rewrites. You can't have any.
I don't want like robot dialogue.
You can't have any pages handed to you on set with the strike on. They can't do any of that. Nothing.
Yeah. Andor season 2 is going to be like Sesame Street.
Yeah, really.
With a couple swear words. There you go.
Well, we're not there, and we may or may not get to this at some point in a future episode, but in the season 3 episode of Rebels called The Antilles Extraction, Hera tells Ezra that Fulcrum is the code name given to secret informants. They're having a meeting with Commander Sato at the time. And she tells Ezra that it was because Ezra is like, they get a call and they think it's, Sato actually name drops Fulcrum. And Ezra's like, what? Ahsoka? And Hera corrects him and she says, no, there are multiple Fulcrums. And she says that it was Ahsoka's idea to have multiple Fulcrum agents and that Ahsoka was just one of them. That was Ahsoka's idea.
Cool.
That's an interesting thought.
Yeah, man. That's real cool.
Well, that's our Cole's Notes sort of version of Fulcrum, what it could mean, might mean, may mean. Remember, no canon is more important than your own head canon.
It's true.
All right, let's get to the episode. This one, it's Fire Across the Galaxy. And in Fire Across the Galaxy, Kanan has been captured by the Grand Inquisitor, who is torturing him to try and ascertain information about other rebels, namely Fulcrum. He also name drops Fulcrum. Of course, Kanan can't tell him anything because up to this point in galactic history, the leaders of the nascent rebellion have kept the knowledge of other rebel cells a secret, and he just genuinely does not know who Fulcrum is. To make matters worse, Kanan is being held on Grand Moff Tarkin's Star Destroyer, the Sovereign, which is at the center of a fleet of Star Destroyers that just happen to be orbiting Mustafar.
That's a bad spot to be in,
isn't it?
Awesome visual, though.
Like, I mean, I'm looking at the four ships. I'm like, frying pan, and then I look at the planet. Fire. However, the rebels, not without a plan, actually steal a Gozanti-class cruiser, which should allow them to fly close enough to the fleet so that they can board the Sovereign and rescue Kanan. However, the Gozanti, it's too large for a Star Destroyer hangar. Fortunately for the Ghost crew, Ezra and Zeb have kept the TIE fighter that they stole previously in the season, which is small enough to land in the hangar. But there is the slight issue that Sabine has used the ship as a canvas, and it now sports a bright yellow paint scheme. Harris says that won't matter, though, because the Imperials will just scan the ship long before they can see it. By the time they do see it, it will be too late. I just love, I don't want to get into the weeds too much, but like when they stole the Gozanti and the base, the airfield blew up, the plume of smoke
kind of like
coiled around like the Phoenix Cell emblem.
Mm-hmm.
Can't tell me that wasn't intentional.
Oh, yeah.
It just looks so good. I had to throw that in. It's
beyond good.
Yeah, had to throw that in there. So, flying to Mustafar, Chopper, our murder droid Chopper, Chop, remotely pilots the TIE into the Star Destroyer's hangar. But the cockpit of the TIE is laden with what appear to be several grenade-like weapons. When the ship lands, Sabine triggers a switch on her gauntlet, which detonates the devices, causing a cascade of energy, not unlike an ion blast, that pulses outward from the TIE.
Gigantic EMP.
It's huge. But the wave of energy not only knocks out power to the Star Destroyer, but it also knocks out most of the ship's crew. Certainly those two stormtroopers, they got it. Then Chopper maneuvers the Gozanti in, and using a docking clamp, he lands the ship on the hull of the Sovereign. Using his lightsaber, Ezra then cuts his way into the Star Destroyer. Then he and the rest of the rebels go off in search of Kanan, using the Force as a sort of GPS to locate the Elder Jedi Knight.
I had to laugh at this scene, though, because when he pushes the metal through...
Oh, it's like red hot, and he just climbs through.
He just touches his finger to it like, oh, is it hot enough yet?
It's glowing hot metal, and I'm like...
You just cut it open.
Your boots are melting as you walked over that. But yeah. It's okay. I can get
cartoon logic.
I can get past it. Absolutely.
It's fun.
Space wizards.
And laser swords.
It's in space. It'll cool quick.
That's right. All right, back on the stolen cruiser, Chopper watches as another Gozanti. Did I just skip a thing? Oh my God, I totally did. Let me go back here. Okay, and they go off using the Force as a GPS to locate Kanan Jarrus. Now, with the Sovereign running on emergency power, Tarkin has failed to check in with the rest of the fleet, which triggers a response from one of the other Star Destroyers in the form of two Sentinel-class landing craft that are loaded with a quick reaction force of stormtroopers. Now, with the troopers hot on their heels, Ezra uses his lightsaber to weld a blast door shut. It's a complete inverse of anything we've ever seen. We cut doors open. We've never seen using a lightsaber to fuse them together, which cool moment.
Awesome.
Effectively cutting them off. Effectively cutting them off from finding Kanan. But Hera reminds Ezra that he's small enough to fit in the ventilation shaft. Climbing into the ductwork, Ezra closes the hatch behind him, and he sets off to find Kanan while the rest of the rebels continue moving through the hallways. Back on the stolen cruiser, Chopper watches as another Gozanti flies past en route to the Sovereign. Activating his comm, he calls the mysterious Fulcrum, who is surprised to see the droid. Using his Force GPS, Ezra finds and frees Kanan, and together the two of them start making their way back towards the Gozanti. But they are cut off by the Grand Inquisitor. Now, Kanan takes Ezra's lightsaber and runs in and charges at the Grand Inquisitor. Then, seeing Kanan's lightsaber hanging from the Grand Inquisitor's belt, Ezra force pulls it to his hand, and together, Master and Apprentice take on the former Jedi Temple Guardian. The fight goes back and forth until the Grand Inquisitor knocks Ezra from the platform and he falls seemingly to his death. Thinking his apprentice dead, Kanan is able to let go of his fear and using both his and Ezra's lightsaber, battles the Grand Inquisitor to essentially what amounts to a standstill.
One thing, I mean, not Ahsoka related at all.
Yeah.
But as Ezra is watching Kanan use his lightsaber, switching between blaster
and saber,
he's like, "Why didn't I ever think of that?
I never thought of that."
It's like, really? You have this tool and you never thought to use it?
The funny thing is, though, that Kanan actually carries a blaster. And rarely uses it.
Yeah, but if it's
There's
already
some serious
in his hand,
dialogue between him and the Rebels gives us such a wicked look at the Force.
Yeah.
Like I honestly think that Kanan Jarrus is the most well-rounded Jedi of all the Jedi we experience.
I agree.
And like the dialogue when he thinks Ezra is dead is just so good. I'd be paraphrasing. I don't have it memorized.
Absolutely.
But, you know, like now you have nothing to lose, and now I have nothing to fear. It's just like
it goes back to the torture sequence when the Grand Inquisitor basically tells him that it's his fault that Depa Billaba was killed, and then calls him a coward.
Right.
And in this moment, he's like, "You're right. I was a coward, and I did run, but now I don't have to." And he's like, I can't remember what he says, but he does say something to that effect. Yeah, because now I have nothing left to fear. And I mean, he's one of the first Jedi characters we meet that right out the gate, as soon as we meet him, he's already in a romantic relationship with somebody.
Yeah.
By the way, that fear of loss, Kanan never falls to the dark side.
Never.
You know, like it's all the things that you wanted for Anakin that he never got. All right. Well,
and coming up, he restrains himself.
Oh yeah.
He's got the Inquisitor dead to rights.
Absolutely.
And he's got the blades crossed.
Yeah.
He could Anakin him right there.
He does.
But he doesn't.
Well, meanwhile, the other rebels make their way through the Sovereign, evading the Stormtrooper Quick Reaction Force as they work their way back towards the Gozanti. Hera calls Ezra, who it turns out isn't actually dead. He was just knocked out from the fall when he landed on a platform several feet down. When you watch it back and you realize
you didn't see the platform,
he's looking up at I mean, that's a lot. That's pretty close. I mean, did Kanan really not see him the 20 feet below? But that's okay. Cartoon logic.
Yeah. He's laser focused on his opponent.
Absolutely is. Kanan forces the Grand Inquisitor to the edge of a platform where he cuts the Grand Inquisitor's spinning lightsaber in half, causing both blades to fall into the Sovereign's power core and explode. Hanging from the platform, the Grand Inquisitor tells Kanan that he has no idea what he's unleashed today, and there are things far more frightening than death before he falls into the burning power core. Or so we think. Ezra makes his way back up to Kanan, and after a short but heartfelt reunion, the two make a run for it back towards the Gozanti. God, I used the word Gozanti an awful lot, didn't I? I just want to drive it home that's that class of ship, by the way.
I think I did that with Vader's tie. Vader's tie.
Meanwhile, on the Sovereign's bridge, an officer tells Grand Moff Tarkin that the power core is overloading and there is damage to the hyperdrive. They have to evacuate. With the ship falling apart around them, Hera, Zeb, and Sabine make their way to the hangar where the bright yellow tie sits. Hera calls Ezra and says they're not leaving without them, but Kanan tells her, just listen to the kid. Fleeing the damaged ship, Hera and the rebels are pursued by a squad of ties. She calls Chopper to tell him that they'll need to go to lightspeed as soon as they link up, but the droid doesn't answer. Back on the Sovereign, Kanan and Ezra make it to the hangar where the only remaining ship is the Grand Inquisitor's TIE Advanced. It's similar to the one that Vader uses in A New Hope, but with smaller wings with a circular curve to them. Kanan and Ezra catch up with the other rebels, managing to take out a couple of TIEs along the way. But the remaining fleet have launched their complement of fighters, and the swarm presently closing in on them is more than the two ships can handle. Just then, Chopper and his Gozanti drop out of hyperspace, flanked by the Ghost and 3 Corellian CR-90 corvettes. The small flotilla of ships joins the fight, and it's enough to allow the fleeing TIEs to dock with Chopper and make the jump to hyperspace.
There's a great line coming out of the hangar, though, by Ezra, where he's like, "Oh, it's the Grand Inquisitor ship," and he's like, "Well, he's not gonna need it."
Oh yeah, and then Kanan's like, "I worry about you."
Yeah.
On board the Gozanti, everyone is reunited. As they recount the events of the battle, there is a question of who exactly was piloting the Ghost. Which is funny because when they leave Mustafar, all the ships, besides the 2 TIEs that are docked to the cruiser, they all go off on their own. But then we cut back to a second shot in hyperspace, and the Ghost and that cruiser are now docked. So did they do that in hyperspace, or did they drop out, connect, and go again? It's weird because the sequence from inside the hallway kind of treats it like they never stopped. They never dropped out of hyperspace.
Well, maybe once you're in there, physics work different.
They absolutely do. But this is the only instance I can think of in Star Wars where 2 ships have docked in hyperspace.
There's don't they uncouple the Phantom at one point from in mid hyper later on in like season 3? I'm sure
they drop but it would have dropped out of hyperspace, wouldn't it? I'm gonna have to rewatch it to find out.
Well,
I don't recall, but
the Martez sisters dropped cargo out of hyperspace.
They did, and then it just
right.
Conceivably. Anyway,
this is the way the whole High Republic begins. Is that the Nihil destroy basically a Titanic, a pleasure cruiser with 500,000 sentient beings on it in hyperspace, and when it rips itself out of hyperspace, it's shrapnel. Moving through a star system at light speed, destroying worlds.
Yeah.
So if you dropped it high, so I don't know. Yeah, it's weird. It's very interesting. Could you spacewalk in hyperspace?
I don't know.
Be cool.
Well, cutting back to another shot of hyperspace, we now see that the Ghost is docked with that cruiser. Inside, the Spectres leave the cruiser to board their ship. In the airlock, they're met by 4 uniformed guards that stand at attention. On board the Ghost, Chopper projects a hollow image of Imperial Senator Bail Organa. And Kanan is confused. He says that he's only met him once and he doesn't even know his name. Well, Hera moves to stand beside the hologram as she tells him who exactly he is. And Kanan asks about the crews of the blockade runners, and Bail tells him that they are from other rebel cells. And it's a revelation to all of them, all but Hera, who explains that the protocol was for none of them to ever meet, because if any of them were to be captured, they couldn't reveal the other cells to the Empire. But then a familiar voice says that protocol has changed as a woman climbs down the ladder behind them. Hera turns and he calls her Fulcrum, but she corrects her as she introduces herself as Ahsoka Tano. Kanan asks why she's come here, and Ahsoka tells him it's because of Kanan and his apprentice. Many people in the Lothal system and beyond heard Ezra's message, and she says it's given them hope in their darkest time, a hope that Ahsoka says they don't want to die. Ezra asks Ahsoka, so what happens now? And Ahsoka says she doesn't know, that a chapter has closed for him, but this is a new beginning. Well, back on Lothal, Tarkin lands at the Imperial military headquarters where he's met by ISB agent Callus. He says that they're getting reports of unrest from all over the planet, adding that there are whispers from Mustafar. Some people see the Empire as weak and vulnerable. Grand Moff Tarkin tells the agent not to worry, because the Emperor has sent an alternative solution. We hear the crack and hiss of a respirator as the terrifying visage of Darth Vader lumbers down the boarding ramp. Then both he and Tarkin walk away, leaving Callus standing there in bewilderment. And we cut to the title card, which normally comes at the beginning of the episode, but this time comes at the end, and then immediately cut to black.
Have you never seen an episode of Rebels? Wouldn't that just give you everything you like fleets of Star Destroyers over Mustafar?
We got a
crazy lightsaber battle.
We didn't really go into it in any great detail, but I mean the dogfight in this episode, they threw a swarm of TIEs at them that rivals the scene from Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
Sure.
Sheer amount of ships on screen, which was great.
With a graffiti laden, like escaping a graffiti laden TIE, like all these, like, so good.
I tip my hat to the descriptive audio guys, by the way, because let me just back up here for a second. I want to go back to that TIE for a second because it's kind of cool. TIE fighter. It's at the. Oh, that's
Makes me want to paint mine.
There we go. Looking at that TIE, I'm a big fan of the Star Wars X-Wing miniatures game, and in the game they call that Sabine's TIE. It's labeled Sabine's TIE. The descriptive audio guy actually says, like, see the checkerboard on it? It actually, descriptive audio guy refers to it as a Dejark board. So my hat, it literally tip to them for staying so in universe with that.
Nice.
I thought that was very cool. Yeah, I mean, Rebels just gives you, again, I don't think you could say it any other way, Hank. You said it. Peak Star Wars.
Peak Star Wars.
It is so
good.
So good.
It goes places with the Force you would never, ever expect. And it feels so incredibly comfortable and right.
Yeah, and we're going to go off even further on that in the episodes that are coming up here. I don't know if we're getting it to it today. I think it's going to be next week's episode when we go back to the Jedi Temple on Lothal. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
But like having first watch for me.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the double-edged lightsaber, having only seen like Darth Maul wield it.
Oh, right.
And then watching the Grand Inquisitor do crazy stuff with it. Like,
we had talked about this
element,
right? So
out of Visions,
which is interesting because we talked about this when we were doing when we were covering Kenobi, and so like the Inquisitors had that.
Yeah.
Reva had that as well as the other. By the way, the fifth brother goes from being a Spanish guy in Rebels to being an Asian guy in Kenobi, but they are the same character.
Turns into Han.
Cool though, because we'd seen them do all these crazy lightsaber things in Rebels, and I think that was a complaint that I had that we didn't really get to see them. We didn't get to see them fly. We didn't get to see them like do.
I mean, he does start activating that helicopter effect.
Oh, he does.
Wings it right at him. And it just
We didn't
similar to Vader throwing it around, but more lethal.
So we talked earlier. We had a conversation before. I should have talked about this at the beginning of the show, maybe, but this seems like an appropriate time for it. We talked about how little Ahsoka appears in these episodes, and it's like, are these really? I mean, they are on the essential playlist, but do they really need to be there?
I don't know that they're essential to her character development, but they're essential to her timeline placement within the galaxy.
I would say that this episode is essential because not only does it mark the return of Ahsoka since the cancellation of Rebels, but also to the galaxy, to Star Wars within the universe. It also reestablishes Darth Vader, and that sets us up for something that's going to happen in a future episode that is important to her development and to her world, as it were.
Yeah, this is like a preamble to the preamble to the preamble.
It kind of is. It really is. Yeah. But now that we've gotten through it, I'm glad that we did cover it. So I'm happy now to turn the reins over to Andy, who's going to take us through our next one. We're going into season 2.
Yep, season 2.
Season 2.
So season 2 of Rebels. Episode 1, Siege of Lothal Part 1, originally aired June 20th, 2015. Synopsis goes, the crew returns to Lothal to rescue a defecting Imperial officer, but they must face Darth Vader.
According to your slide, it's Darth Raider.
Is it Darth Vader?
I love it.
no.
I love it. Oh,
Imperial.
they're gonna recuse him. they're gonna recuse.
I put the spelling mistakes on the wrong one.
This is awesome. See,
That's
this is
beautiful.
the kind of thing that
That's
I
gonna be
would
a
do.
T-shirt.
I want to read this exactly as it's written because it says
That's
the crew
fantastic.
returns to Lothal to rescue a defecting Imperial officer,
Oh wow!
but they must face Darth Raider.
Recuse though.
Terrible.
I
There's
swear
even
to God,
recuse.
did you write it? This is like written for an episode of The Muppets.
Maybe.
I'm sorry.
The only other thing I can
so
think of is the font because I know it,
It
doesn't
absolutely
handle
is. It-
certain characters.
It when you capitalize, I know when you're using the Star Jedi font, if you use the capitals on some of them, it changes them.
which I definitely
So I just
did.
I don't write in capitals when I'm using that font.
Well, makes for an
production
interesting slide.
production woes, but man, thank
Oops.
you because that laugh was so good.
I didn't even know it was there. But we open this episode mid-battle as the Ghost is partnered up with the Phoenix Squadron, and they're looking to liberate some cargo from an Imperial transport. And Sabine is successful in detaching it, but before the Ghost can claim it, more Imperial reinforcements arrive out of hyperspace, and we cut to the title card, and then we're right back in it. And more TIEs have just joined the fight, and quickly the command ship is under fire and in danger of losing its deflector shields. But Commander Sato, he tells them, we've got to leave. But Hera insists they're not leaving without what they came for. And Zeb lines up the tractor beam, target locks, and snatches the floating cargo out of mid-space.
This is a recurring thing throughout the series when they do these little snatch and grabs, that they use this magnetic feature of the hull.
Yeah, because it's like a miniaturized tractor beam, right?
It's
Something
kind of
akin to it.
yeah, or they'll land on top of like a shipping container and like magnetically seal it to the hull and then just fly away. It's pretty cool, and they do it a lot.
It's pretty slick. But with it secure, Sabine docks with the Ghost finally, and the fleet makes their escape into hyperspace. Meanwhile, over on Lothal, Minister Tua asks Agent Callus what more Governor Tarkin expects her to do, and she lists off all like the checkpoints and curfews and blockades and everything that she's put in place, and she doesn't know what else to do. But just then, Lord Vader arrives and tells her maybe that's the problem. She lacks imagination, and he suggests that if the rebels had left, they must be drawn back. And if they're still here, they must be drawn out. But Minister 2 says she has no experience with such brutal tactics. And Vader tells her she can explain that to Governor Tarkin the following day when she visits him to account for her failure. And then Vader and Callus leave the room, telling her, don't worry, we'll manage without you. And they leave her in tears.
For those who have watched the series before, I remember season 1 how despicable she was. She was this awful character, and now you're like, I'm supposed to feel sorry for you.
Having skipped a couple episodes, I can see why.
Another thing to point out, and this, of course, you can't hear it because, I mean, as much as we like to do voices and sound effects and stuff, nobody, and I mean nobody, except you, Respeecher, can do James Earl Jones, like James Earl Jones, who comes back for Vader in this. And this is pre-AI voice enhancement. This is pure. This is 100% James Earl Jones.
You can hear his age, but it's still the real deal.
It's very powerful, and it's
really
so
part of what makes, like, with the soundtrack being so close to the original and
so Williams-esque.
Yeah, and like there's like so many elements. Like when he enters the room, you get that little Imperial beat.
They give you just
enough,
a touch of their theme to let you know how. It just reminds us of how intrinsically linked these characters are with their piece of theme music.
That's just it. Something that, I mean, I'm sure it'll become endearing to us and I don't dislike it at all. But I've seen several edits that have swapped out like Gorenson's music with John Williams. And it's
really?
Like, holy cow.
It changes the feel of it, wouldn't it?
Everything. Like listening to Yoda's theme over Grogu is just wow. Anyway, back to your regular schedule program.
Yeah, but you're right. Like to hear the impending threat coming through.
Oh yeah.
there's a reason she's in tears there. She
Oh,
knows
yeah.
she's in.
Oh yeah. Possibly more afraid
Yeah.
of Tarkin than Vader.
If that's possible.
Yeah, I mean, this is something we would cover if we were doing a full deep dive, but I think it's important just to point out that we are at roughly 5 BBY. We're 5 years before the events of the original Star Wars. So like,
Height of their power.
yeah, stuff has gotten really real for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But elsewhere, Commander Sato thanks Captain Hera for her efforts in allowing the Phoenix Squad to stay one step ahead of the Imperials. And Hera, she regrets that the intel was wrong about shield generators being there.
Right.
But Ahsoka suggests maybe in the next attack. And just then, Chopper busts in the room and Kanan tells him, go ahead, play the incoming transmission. And this upsets Hera to no end because they're in the middle of a secret rebel debriefing and she is still captain. Hera tells Chopper to cloak this transmission and do it with a one-way signal. And it's their contact, Old Joe. And he tells them,
Old Joe.
Time is short, and he has someone that needs to speak with them. And just pointing out, like you would thought about Kallus getting in contact with them.
Oh yeah.
She does mention here that she's got a list of sympathizers.
Yeah.
And I would assume after what happens here, that information might pass to him, which opens up a channel with Old Joe, right?
Given how close that Kallus is in this episode, both to the governor and to Vader, it's like he is walking. If he is acting as a Fulcrum agent right now, he is so like that guy doesn't realize how close to death he is. He's literally inches from death, like
at any moment.
That's what I mean. Like,
But it turns out it's Minister Tua that needs safe passage off Lothal, and she's willing to trade Imperial secrets to make it happen. Ezra senses that she's telling the truth, but she's afraid of something.
Yeah.
Kanan agrees, and Tua also tells them that she'll reveal the real reason the Empire is on Lothal, a reason only known to a few, and it's at the request of the Emperor himself.
Yeah.
Ezra steps forward and says that they have to help her, and Ahsoka gives a smile here that the young Jedi has made the choice to help, and she agrees, as does Kanan. Hera concedes, but only if Commander Sato approves the mission, and he agrees that it's worth the risk, and they all agree that they're returning to Lothal. And unfortunately, this is the last we see of Ahsoka in this episode.
Yeah.
But I do think it's important, like her watching Ezra make that choice gives her that bit of hope, like, back when she was young and hopeful and ready to jump in and do the right thing no matter what.
There's somewhat of a looking in the mirror moment for her.
Yeah.
Quick note about Commander Sato. I don't think I picked this up the first time around. He's voiced by veteran voice actor Keon Young. If you think you know that voice or that name, you may recognize his voice as the original Storm Shadow on G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, I didn't pick that up the first time around, but got it this time.
Kanan, he marches out with Hera in pursuit, and she asks him if he knows what he did back there was wrong. To which he replies, no, he's not happy with all the procedures and regulations, and after this mission, he wants them to go back on their own. Having been through one war, Kanan isn't keen on getting involved in another. And by chance, Ezra hears part of this as he passes by.
Oh, yeah.
Back on Lothal.
Is that the moment where, is it this episode where he says when this is over that he wants to go back to, I wanted to go back to it just being us?
Yeah, it's this moment here.
It's in this moment. So there's a huge dialogue piece here. It's not even the dialogue, it's the metaphor here. This is exactly what happened to Ahsoka. He was a kid sent off to war. He survived one war, doesn't want to get pulled into another one.
And he doesn't want to do it because he's seen what it does to everybody.
Well, right. Like, he's like, in the beginning, when we started this, we were robbed from the Empire and give to the needy. He's literally the Robin Hood syndrome.
A noble cause, as he says.
Absolutely. And now he's like, I didn't sign up. This is like getting way too close to being a soldier.
Yeah. Something
that he doesn't want to get into again. I'm like, oh my God, it's so on point for this character.
Yeah. But over on Lothal, Agent Kallus, he's keeping tabs on Minister Tua, and he's got a probe droid like literally following around. to make
Yeah.
sure she's doing nothing shady. But we catch up again with the Ghost Crew in a nondescript shuttle. And
The Star Tour shuttle.
yeah, they're discussing why they're doing this. And Ezra tells them because it's the right thing to do. Plus, that list will probably help them out. And as they get there, their shuttle is cleared for landing. And just as Ezra is about to mention how he'd missed Lethal, he's overcome with a sense of cold. And as they land and depart the shuttle, he looks up and remarks how many more Star Destroyers there are now and how it's gotten so much worse.
I think it's interesting that it's Ezra that senses it and not Kanan.
Yeah.
Yeah. Several times in my episode, too.
Yeah.
So they come up with a plan to hijack the ship that Minister Tua is supposed to depart on and get her to safety. So upon arrival at the hangar, Kanan decides he's going to go cause a distraction by making some friends. And he ends up knocking out a stormtrooper and stealing his armor so the rest can drop in from the hangar above as he approaches unknown to them. But as Minister Tua arrives, they find that she's not alone. She's being escorted by Agent Callus. And as she approaches the shuttle, Sabine drops in from behind to distract some of the stormtroopers, giving Kanan a chance to lock the bay with Tua himself and Callus inside. Ezra tells Minister Tua as they drop in to get to the ship, and they'll be right behind her. But before they can board the ship, an explosion erupts and kills the minister. And the rebels are left pinned down awaiting extraction. And unbeknownst to them, Darth Vader is watching from above. But very quickly, Zeb and Chopper arrive in the shuttle, and the rebels make their escape.
As I was rewatching this, when that happened, I actually spoke out loud. Did they just sacrifice her?
The Imperials did.
That's what I mean. Yeah. I'm like,
Mhm.
I didn't remember that moment. I'm like, wow.
Yeah. And again, like for Callus, like if he's this far back, knowing that they could like, oh yeah, sorry, Minister, you're just a pawn in Invader's plan here.
Again, I see this, and that's where I question, and you guys know how much I loved Andor. We saw what Cassian did in the opening
Yeah,
moments of
that's
Rogue One.
exactly. Yeah, that would be my point exactly.
He was willing to like shoot that guy. I'm
Hell
thinking
yeah.
if Callus could very well be doing the same thing. He's still funneling stuff to the rebellion, or what will become the rebellion, while still acting in his role
Of
as an
killing
ISB
rebels.
agent. Yeah.
Right. Like, Saw Gerrera. We talk about Saw Gerrera being this extremist, but
yeah.
The clarity of vision and purpose, the bigger picture, makes men do horrible things in war.
It really does. Yeah.
Extreme measures on both sides.
Yeah.
But our crew here, they don't get very far before the shuttle is tagged by an Imperial walker and they crash into the street. And it's Sabine that beckons them all to get up as they have to flee, and they rush off into the streets. But back in the palace, Agent Callus reports that everything went just as Vader predicted it would. And Vader then tells him to lock down the spaceport and announce that the rebel assassins are hiding in the city, and any ship that attempts to leave will be destroyed.
Yep.
So inside their hideout, the message has gone out, and they receive it that the rebels are now being labeled assassins. And Hera arrives at the conclusion that they must leave Lothal for good. And Ezra, he protests that the people need to know. But Sabine suggests, the Empire isn't really giving them much choice. And with the notice out, it's not long before the stormtroopers are knocking at the door. But Chopper buys them some time by shocking one trooper and then welding the door shut.
Murder bot.
Yeah. But the stormtroopers do get in pretty quick. And the time he's bought them allows them to escape to the roof just before they barge in and start shooting up the place. And then they drop a bomb in for good measure. But they're safely out, and they concede that they need a ship as all their hideouts are most likely compromised.
I mean, that is one way to clear a building. You can just like level it.
True.
Clear.
It was almost like the Predator scene, right? Like they just open fire and there's nobody there.
I love that they do that. They just run in and like, we're just going to pepper the entire room.
Yeah.
Be damned if there's anybody in there.
Yeah. And,
friendly or
damned.
Friendly or otherwise.
Yeah.
We know they're in there. Get in there. Okay.
Yeah.
Unlimited ammo.
They arrive at the conclusion that their safest option is the landing platforms near the factory, while most of the troopers will be out looking for them. And as they head out, Ezra looks down and remarks there is no going home. Still in his trooper armor, Kanan and then Ezra, now in a cadet disguise, push 2 large crates on a hover cart through a checkpoint. The guard stops them, and Ezra tries to use the Jedi mind trick, but he fails.
Did you just give me an order?
No, but Kanan leans in, and he's much more successful, and they pass through no problem.
No, but he did say you don't need to look inside.
Once inside, though, Hera, Sabine, Zeb, and Chopper pop out of the crates, and they make for the way towards the landing pad. And after knocking out a couple more troopers, they arrive, and there is a shuttle. But Sabine notices a supply of shield generators, military grade, and Hera makes the decision to take all they can carry. But as they make their way to the ship, Ezra stops suddenly and turns around, and Kanan senses it this time as well.
Yeah,
The
this
cold.
time.
And they turn, and it's Vader.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to. What do you say about that? Yep, it's Vader.
Yeah, there's Vader plus an entourage
It's
of
Vader.
stormtroopers. So, we're in trouble now.
I know we're going to pick this up exactly where it left off, but just keep this in mind. That scene in Kenobi.
Yep.
Yeah. With the different, like, they don't even know what they're into. 'Cause
No.
even we'll get into it in a second, but Ezra thinks this is just another Inquisitor.
Inquisitor.
Is it another? It's another Inquisitor. Okay, we've dealt with them before.
Yeah. And weirdly, like Ezra sensing first, but Kanan picking up this time. Vader doesn't. They're like flies to him.
Oh yeah, they absolutely are.
Oh yeah.
But
Yeah.
we will turn this over to Hank so we can keep it rolling.
Finally, Rebels. Oh, season 2, episode 2, Siege of Lothal, part 2.
Part 2.
It's about 2 minutes, or it's 2 minutes long. That's about how much has Ahsoka in it. 21:29 without credits. It's probably about 30 minutes with credits.
Yeah.
Written by Henry Gilroy, directed by Brad Rao. Both stalwarts throughout Rebels. I don't know their other catalogs, but they wrote and directed a vast majority in league with Dave and them. And I kind of, if I can read it, I wrote my own thing. As Vader follows the fleeing rebels back to their fleet, Ahsoka touches a dark secret in the Force.
Oh yes.
The slide thing over it. Oh,
I see what you mean about the density of slides.
Yeah, I calm down.
For those of you who are getting the audio version of this, we use 16:9 slides, and I think Hank, you've got what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
There's
9,
11.
10, 11, 12, 15 photos in one, in one slide.
I do calm down. I do.
Sometimes it just demands that level.
It really
That's
is
the level of
it's like,
detail that I want to do this in.
Yeah.
How do you break down this scene?
Because literally, this is their first encounter.
Yeah.
Right?
That was me going like, okay, and then they swung to the left, and then they kicked with the right boot. To they had a fight.
Right. I do eventually get like,
I'm
it's
glad
only
to
so
know
many
it's
times
not
you can
just
describe-
me.
No, it's and Rebels. I mean, I'm sitting here going, as I'm screenshotting these, I'm sorry guys, I'm coming off the rails. As I'm screenshotting these, I want to make my own series of Rebels trading cards.
Oh yeah.
The scenes, I'm like, oh, I could probably work that out. Picking up where we left off in part 1, Vader's breathing dominates the soundscape. Ezra and Kanan ignite their lightsabers as several stormtroopers approach with Vader, his crimson blade already ablaze. Kanan screams to Hera to get moving, that he and Ezra will cover them. Hera screams back for him to look out. Vader is already upon them, and Kanan blocks Vader's heavy single-handed attack. I love how big they make Vader. He towers above by feet. When you see him right next to a character they're both crouching, and he's feet.
Well, I mean, the perspective
Kanan.
on the one image, like over the top of his helmet, looking down at Kanan and Ezra, makes them look like they're action figures standing on the floor.
And that's pretty much how he plays with them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hera and Chopper rush to load the cargo into the stolen shuttle as Vader uses the Force to toy with Kanan and Ezra, tossing them both around like Tuca dolls. Using the Force to draw Ezra's own saber to the young Jedi's throat, Vader pontificates. Your master has deceived you into thinking you could become a Jedi. But Kanan recovers in time to distract Vader with all he can muster. He lunges a mighty swing, attacks which are easily brushed aside by the Sith Lord. Hera instructs Chopper to get ready to fly them out as stormtroopers begin to open fire from covered positions. Sabine and Zeb hatch a plan to use explosive sticky chargers on the walkers. Vader lands a glancing blow off Kanan's shoulder pauldron from staggering. There's a typo for you. Shoulder pauldron, staggering him in a shower of sparks. A couple of keen tosses land detonators squarely on the leg joints of two ATSTs and send the walkers careening down. Kanan and Ezra use their combined ability to force push Vader back into the path of the toppling vehicles, burying him in the wreckage. Thinking it's over, Kanan and Ezra lower their guard, but a black gloved hand emerges from the smoking hulk and Vader rises, the entire walker hoisted in the air above him with the Force. Ezra remarks, "If that doesn't kill him, what will?" Kanan replies glibly, "Not us.
Not
Dark
us.
Lord, not us." The Dark Lord of the Sith steps forward and lets it just fall behind him. The two Jedi run for the catwalk of the shuttle. Sabine lays down cover fire, but Vader effortlessly deflects the bolts back at her, hitting her squarely in the chest and the helmet. Thank the Force for Beskar.
I guess
She's dead there. She's,
she would've been.
dead. The Ghost crew manages to take off, but Vader knows they will not flee the system.
He's a shrewd guy, that Vader.
He's seen it.
I have foreseen. Oh wait, it wouldn't be that. It would be I have foreseen it.
Yeah. Also, my combat experience as a as a Jedi Knight. I know they think
This is good though. I mean, this is Vader like we wanted to see him, and
Yeah.
we got to see some of that in Kenobi. But animation just unhinges all of those restraints of what you can make a character do, and you don't have to worry about things like physics.
Yeah.
And this close to he's been Vader for 15 years now, or something like that. He's let go of most.
Yep.
I would say in a couple of arcs we're going to touch on it, and I think that's when he really comes to terms with his past. But I don't think there's much of Anakin Skywalker in Vader right now.
Oh no, I don't think so either. Yeah,
because prime opportunity to basically steal Ezra and corrupt him, right?
Yeah, I mean, and we get that with Luke. Join me, and together we'll rule as father and son. He could have tried to take another apprentice.
Yeah,
could have tried to corrupt Ezra.
And thing on Ezra, like how far between the end of season 1 and season 2 are we?
They say that the 4 seasons of Rebels occur between 5 BBY and 1
BBY. Basically, they each cover a year.
Okay,
more or less.
Yeah, more or less.
Other thing, like the previous season, right? Ezra noticing Kanan using the blaster and saber in conjunction. He hasn't picked any of that up.
He still hasn't done it. Yeah.
You really start to get into their formal training now that they commit. They like Kanan's still up in the air about training him right now. It's he's along for the ride. He trusts him. He knows that he's been drawn to the holocron and to his saber. He knows that he's really powerful with the Force, but he's still really unsure of his own path in terms of being able to give Ezra. He probably would rather hand Ezra off to Ahsoka.
Yeah, in the same way that Din Djarin wanted to hand.
He's really unsure of his own abilities. He's
he's
more of a Han Solo than a Luke Skywalker at this point.
Yeah.
As the Spectres lick their respective wounds, Ezra asks Kanan if that was an Inquisitor that they just encountered. Kanan explains that it must have been a Sith Lord. Ezra wants to know how they can defeat him, but Kanan believes them lucky to even be alive. Hera's instincts are to flee the planet, but Kanan realizes they cannot because Vader will have a fleet of Star Destroyers waiting for them in orbit. Hera has a plan, however. Smuggle them off-world. Hire Lando Calrissian. Vader knows they haven't left the planet, so he orders Agent Kallus to burn Tarkin Town, banking that their compassion will draw them out. It's always let's use their compassion against them.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
It's always the sort of Sith method.
The art of war. Exploit.
Hera contacts Lando and offers him a cut of the shield generators, offering him 2, but he says basically, if you're offering me 2, then I know you have 6, so why don't you give me 3? After bargaining Lando style, he agrees to take the job. He's not around. He agrees to take the job for half their take. And
I just love.
I'm gonna get my droid to do all the work.
I'm not there, but
yeah, I got a droid that'll take care of it. He's not around, but
droids. There it is, the proto C3PO.
Right.
The
not
C3PO.
looking Yeah, those killer droids when they transform.
Yeah,
A lot like those
a
things.
lot like that.
Yeah. Hera contacts Lando, offers him the cut of the shield generators. After bargaining Lando's style, he agrees to take the job. He's not
Only
around, but
thing
his
is-
droid is on planet, and that he can get them what they need. Ezra, meanwhile, notices Tarkin Town is a smoking disaster off in the distance.
I don't,
Ezra
think they
Ra-
had I don't think they had 6 generators though.
There was definitely 4.
They got like visibly 4.
There was 4 for
aboard.
sure. I don't know. Maybe there was. I don't know.
'Cause,
She
like,
must have been conning him too, because she said that's half. But
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, you
I don't
got to
know if they
play
ever actually change hands here.
when
They
you're
might-
when you're dealing with Lando. You got to meet Lando on Lando's level.
yeah,
I guess they just leave them with the droid.
yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
Not really even covered.
Yeah, really.
Hera contacts. Where are we? Sorry. Ezra races to investigate on a speeder bike. Kanan joins him outside of the town, explaining why the Empire would do this to innocent people, to create a sense of fear, in order to draw the Jedi out. Kanan says there is a cost to every action they take. When the Clone Wars began, there were 10,000 Jedi Knights to protect the galaxy, but now Ezra knows that the two of them that are all that stands against the Empire in a galaxy once teeming with Jedi Guardians. Ezra is adamant that he isn't afraid. And that's what worries Kanan.
Shows a level of almost like naivety to him still.
Oh yeah.
He's like,
Like, why would they do this
you know,
to get to us?
There's a line later where Ezra is fighting Vader a couple of seasons from now, like, and Vader's like, you know, you're being a fool trying to fight me, essentially, and he's like, I'm not afraid of you. And then Vader says, well, you'll die braver than most then.
Yeah.
It's a great line. Back at the camp, Kanan tells the other Spectres about Tarkin Town, its entire population detained by the Empire. Zeb wants to fight, but Kanan knows he will be waiting there. They have no choice to leave for the good of Lothal. Sabine finds that Lando is in possession of several ship transponder units, and she's got a plan to have them broadcast the ship's transponder code and have several of them in different sectors, hopefully spreading out the Empire's resources long enough to escape. The shuttle drops several devices around Lothal and makes for orbit. As several decoys report the shuttle's signal in succession to the lead destroyer, the ties are indeed drawn thin as the Imperial Admiral in charge realizes one signal is leaving the atmosphere. It's already too late, and Hera makes the jump to safety. The Admiral reports to Kallus, with his tail between his legs, that they've lost the shuttle, but it's a small matter, as they have a tracking beacon on board.
Of course they
Not this ship, sister. Discussing options, it's deemed best to return to the fleet. Hera, after all, believes that they are part of the rebellion now. Docking back with the fleet, relief is short-lived when Chop informs the Ghost Crew that a transponder is just activated on the shuttle. They've been tracked to the fleet. Rushing to the bridge to alert Commander Sato and Ahsoka, it's already too late as a single advanced TIE emerges from hyperspace.
So much for that Pelta class.
Mhm.
So much for the Phoenix home.
Bye.
But he's
And all
just
those-
one TIE fighter.
Oh yeah, just one.
All those A-wings.
Yeah, it's
Wow,
like they launched like 6.
We've lost
What,
Phoenix 1 and 2.
6, 8?
Yeah,
8
8.
A-wings?
There's 8.
8.
Yeah, and he takes out the 2 top pilots first too.
Yeah,
He's not. Yeah, he does a lot of the spinning.
He does. That's a good trick.
That's
I'm
a
gonna
good
try
trick.
this.
Still, in the war room, the group gathers around the console to monitor the situation. Sato orders that Phoenix Squadron launch, and 8 A-wings fighters deploy to intercept the lone TIE fighter. But the pilot is highly skilled and begins to pick them off like womp rats in a canyon. As the telemetry shows the fighter beginning to make an attack run on the capital ship, Hera knows that the pilots are outmatched, and she knows what she must do. Get involved. I love that line, actually. What are you going to do? Get involved.
And it's directed at him, you know, not just in the like, hey, I'm going to go help these guys, but there's a real personal, like, it's almost like a poke.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Telling him
Like
that
you
it's
should too.
the bigger
Yeah,
fight.
yeah. Like you wanna cut ties and run. You know,
Several
we should-
times throughout this course of the series, he tries to rein her back for himself.
Yeah.
He tries to be like, why don't we just go?
He even makes a joke. He even makes a joke, and there's a line between them where she says she either tells him to do something, and he's like, "Okay, General," and I'm
Yeah.
like, "Oh, little foreshadowing there," because
Yeah.
by the time we get
It's
to
like-
Rogue One, we hear that
Well,
it's
General
pipe-
Syndulla.
Yeah, General Syndulla. Yeah.
It's a lot like a real couple too. I really
Oh,
like it.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Joined by the entire Ghost crew and Ahsoka, Hera attempts to draw the tie away, but Ezra senses the cold, the fear, the hate. Ahsoka senses the strength of the Force in the pilot, but believes she can see who or what they are up against. And combining his abilities, Kanan places a hand on her shoulder, and they both reach out with the Force. Doo-doo-doo.
It's an interesting
There, I
little
went
thing
from
here
15
with
to
the two of
2.
them. With the two of them having like Kanan have his hand on her shoulder,
Yes.
almost like is he amplifying her? Like I don't fully appreciate what's happening here,
Yeah,
other
yeah.
than
Well,
space wizardry.
Mm-hmm.
perhaps they stack. I mean,
I guess. maybe.
Ahsoka does it to, she's, touches Rex and he starts chanting when she's removing his chip.
Yeah.
And perhaps you can, I don't know,
amplify.
That's
it,
kind of what I
as a
wondered. Yeah,
conduit.
like,
Yeah.
Yeah, because she tells him, "Remember your training."
yeah, just remember your training. So she's
Right.
obviously taking the lead, and he's just
Right.
a battery.
We do see several times in this when we start to get to the Jedi Temple stuff. So stick around, folks. But when you it requires a Padawan and a master, or an apprentice and a master to open some of these temples. So there is something to be said about the combine. And we jump forward 35 years or 40 years at this point into an actual dyad in the Force where people can share time and space.
Right.
Touching minds, Vader remarks aloud, "The apprentice lives."
The apprentice lives.
There, I went from 15 pictures to 2. Shock and horror fill Ahsoka's mind as she is rendered unconscious by the contact. Falling back, Kanan catches her. Hera barks at Sato to abandon ship and get to hyperspace. Several pods launch and manage to dock with the Corvette. Vader's attention now fully upon the Ghost. In an incredible display of flight skill, Hera weaves in and out of Vader's sights, headed straight towards the Star Destroyers. She anticipates the Empire's next move as the Admiral orders the tractor beam at the ready, and just as it's engaged, the Ghost jumps to hyperspace between the two behemoths, and the invisible tow beam snags Vader's tie in its grasp.
Oops.
And I just gotta, she outflies. He was the best spy pilot in the galaxy.
That's right.
She outflies him. He can't peg her. She's
up
really
there.
I hope we get in the Aftermath novels for fun. She flies head to head with Han Solo.
She absolutely should. I mean, call it, maybe it's a little on the nose, but I mean, I want to see the Millennium Falcon, the Ghost, and the Outrider all trying to do some crazy thing to have all three of these like hot shit pilots, and their hero freighters.
Yeah, if I had to put money, I'd put it on Harrison Dula. Man, I can't wait, and I really hope we get into that level of stuff in the Ahsoka show.
I do as well.
Back in the cockpit of the Ghost, awake now, Ahsoka ponders the meaning of what has just transpired. Whatever that was, Hera lets it be known that they will face it together. And Ahsoka looks back at the crew, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. But somewhere deep, she knows the truth, and she will not be able to run from that.
Yep. You get the feeling, like, just from the way that she's a little guarded there. Like, are you okay? Yes, I'm fine. She knows. And then she turns away, and she's not fine.
No, I'm just gonna go. I'm not crying. You're crying.
I'm gonna stay inside myself here for a minute, because what I think I know can't possibly be what I think I know, but it is what I know because I know what I know. I'm just not telling anybody I know what I know.
What it is, it's literally denial. It's the it's a stage of the grieving process she never went through.
That's right.
Yeah. Like, no, he can't be evil. He's dead.
He's dead. Yeah, much easier to believe that. Aboard his Star Destroyer, Vader clears the bridge, making contact with the Emperor to inform him that the apprentice of Anakin Skywalker survived the Purge and is in league with these rebels. Sidious believes she may be the key to finding other lost Jedi, and Vader muses aloud, such as Kenobi. The Emperor returns. Still driven. Yeah. Perhaps, if he lives. He tells Vader to have patience and dispatch another Inquisitor to hunt them down. Vader bows his head in obedience. As you wish, my master. And we cut to black.
Man.
Vader, I have a note here too. Vader's always has something to drive him. Like, we don't know a lot about what motivates the rest of the Sith beyond like, I'm a Sith and I'm a bad guy and I want to rule.
Right.
But he's when we first find him in the comic books after the events of Revenge of the Sith, in his first months as Vader, where he's being trained, like formally trained by Sidious.
Yep.
He's obsessed with bringing Padme back to life. He still thinks he can bring her corpse back to life.
Yep.
And then he's obsessed with finding Obi-Wan. And then he's obsessed with finding Ahsoka. And then he's obsessed with finding Luke. And then he dies.
Yeah.
You know, the suffering and the pain and it's all almost self-inflicted, which is exactly what
it really is. Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, these 3 episodes together, what do we think of these? How do they stack up in terms of the essentialness of them? They are on the essential list.
They put them on a direct collision course.
Yeah.
We probably could have just trimmed the end of every episode, jammed it into one thing, and talked about when she pops up in the episode.
Yeah,
But
really.
I think it's really important that her, especially in terms of now, and maybe one of the reasons Disney decided to put these episodes on there is because how the beginnings of her relationship with Phoenix, with the Ghost Crew, will inform Rebel season 5.
It really does. Yeah. I just caught last night. One of the other Star Wars YouTubers out there was saying that it looks like the bulk of the series is going to be set during the events of season 3 of The Mandalorian.
I did read that. Yeah.
We presume some of it's going to be time jumpy, whether it's actual time jump or flashbacks is yet to be seen. But
we still haven't really pinned down how things in the world between worlds work.
Exactly. No, I mean, I have some questions about that.
There's a lot of room.
Stuff that we're going to cover on this show, so I guess we better figure this stuff out before we get to talk about it.
I love doing these episodes. I can't get enough of Rebels. I can't wait for us to cover some more Rebels stuff.
Well, we're going to cover more next week.
Well, to cover more,
if there are ever dark times, I would 100% like to revisit these in microscopic detail.
Oh my gosh, yeah,
especially for stuff like when they catch Vader in the tractor beam. The exchange on the Star Destroyer.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
He's like, we just caught Vader. And he's like, well, let him go.
Let him go. And then it's like,
it wasn't your fault, but I won't tell him.
He won't know that.
But Lord Vader won't know that.
Yeah. He's like, oh, you cruel officer.
Nobody got a choking in this.
No.
Nobody got a choking.
No one got a choking. Well, this has been an interesting exercise in not only Ahsoka Tano, but obviously revisiting Rebels, for which we clearly have a love for. We are going to come back and do it again next week. As I said earlier, pre-show, I couldn't remember. I thought we were covering 4 episodes tonight, so I watched the next 4. So I'm already sort of in the mindset of where we're going, and some of that weird master apprentice stuff is going to come up. Some of that weird metaphysical stuff, that space wizardry that is the Force, is going to be quite prevalent in the next one. So that's going to be a fun one to chew on. And then we get into Phantom Apprentice. So those are some very exciting episodes. And then right after that, it's I think we got one more episode of Rebels, and then we get into the live action stuff, which is the Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett. And then it's here. Then it's time. I'm so excited to still be doing this with you guys. It is a blast week in and week out. It still is the highlight of my week. I hope you guys enjoy this. Especially for all you first timers that may be experiencing these shows for the first time. I hope that you guys embrace it the same way that we do. I hope we're not too spoilery, but hey, it's kind of the name of the game what we do here with the level of detail that we normally would cover these with. And again, if you guys like our deep dive review series and you would like to see us tackle Rebels, let us know, because there may be an occasion where there's nothing going on in terms of other new Star Wars and Marvel stuff that we're not covering, that we could start rolling these out sort of at a slower rate,
because we could be affected by the writer's strike.
we could be, and then we'll be scrambling for some stuff to do. That being said, we like to live stream here.
Yep.
We do it twice a week now, Sundays as we do our semi-scripted stuff, and then Tuesday nights where we just kind of we just throw everything into a hat and pull stuff out.
Yep.
That's our random fandom Tuesday nights. You're all invited to come and hang out with us on Tuesday night. Bring your random fandom that you want to talk about, whatever caught your attention in the headlines, entertainment, pop culture speaking. As we will be back with that. And I launched our new segment last week.
Word on the street is it was received really well.
It was okay. It was well received by at least the folks over at your place.
Yep.
Okay, that's good to know.
You have a fan of the segment, so
oh, fantastic! It is our
for another copy
lexicon. It's a little word game where I will put a nonsensical word out that is a real word, and I will try. I'll give you some options to decide what is the real meaning of the word. And last week it was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot of fun. So we're going to do that again.
Nice.
I might save it instead of rolling it at the beginning. Maybe I'll drop it sort of in the middle. So we're not
a chance to
yeah,
jump
exactly. All right. Any more before we sign off for the evening, gentlemen?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Oh man, that was good stuff.
Rebels is good.
Rebels is good. And watching these 4 episodes over the last couple of days just makes me want to go back and rewatch the entire series. As much as I love dialing in the laser focus stuff to find the bits I need for research, I just want to watch. I just want to watch the series again.
Yeah, it's one of the shows that I just throw on in the background of stuff. Like, it's at any given time you might walk into my apartment and Rebels is on.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. Listen, guys, I hope you had a great time hanging out with us, as we always do, hanging out with you. We will be back again next week, or you can come see us on Tuesday night. Otherwise, for Fandom Power, my name is Wes.
I'm Andy.
And I'm Hank.
And we'll see you on the next one. Bye for now, everyone.